Hello, this is Aaron Mean of SG Gaming Info, and this is my preview of the beta for NIS America's Grand Kingdom. Firstly, what is available to the players during the PS4 beta? The beta focuses on the online war portion of the RPG. This online war allows you to take your mercenary army and fight for your selected nation, for up to 3 operations per day. Outside of the online component, you can complete 2 quests for the single player campaign and use 4 of the 13 available classes. Other aspects of the game such as the shop are usable but limited. For the preview, I will primarily focus on the online war, the available classes, and I will touch on the single player campaign. From what I played of the online war, I was impressed. I never found myself getting completely overwhelmed, as battles for the most part felt fairly balanced. But with that said, when all 13 classes are introduced, I suspect there might be some balance issues, but that is for another time. So how does going into a war work? Well, you simply pick one of the 4 nations to work alongside, pick an operation, and fight other player-controlled mercenary groups. The whole setup, like what I've seen for most of the game, is very straightforward, which of course is nice to see, as no one likes to get bogged down with too many menus or other obstacles. My major issue with the online war is the artificial limitation of 3 operations per day. I know in the beta it makes sense, as you don't want people to over-level, but I fear it hinders my enjoyment. I really hope that the full release does away with this artificial limitation, as it was annoying to be told that after 3 operations my time is up and I had to wait 24 hours until I could enter another operation. Now, moving away from the online war, let's talk about the combat. When you enter a battlefield, you are greeted with a grid that gives you an overview of the battlefield. Your job on this grid is to move your mercenaries along the grid until you encounter an enemy group, and once you encounter them, you engage in combat. The combat portion of the battlefield is rather interesting, as it offers some fun, tactical and strategic gameplay, as you fight enemies on a 3-line battlefield with up to 6 characters on your side. In combat, thinking through your moves is almost as important as performing them, as the move you could make could lead to some unintended consequences. For example, if I move my fighter close to an enemy and engage in combat, what could happen next? Could the enemy use his fighter to break my fighter's guard, and thus leaving him open to a barrage of ranged and magic attacks? Now, saying that, it is important to note how combat works. It isn't a point and click affair, as the game uses a move and action based point system. When it's one of your character's turns, you move him up and down the lines and forward towards your enemy. Following this movement phase, and if you are close enough to your enemy, you can use your action points to unleash a number of melee, ranged or magic attacks until you run out of actions. Melee combat is straightforward, as you just need to get close to an enemy and constantly push the correct button until you run out of actions. But while melee combat is straightforward, ranged and magic combat requires a little bit more work. With ranged and magic combat, you need to aim your attacks. This requires getting in range of your enemy and choosing your attack. When your attack is chosen, a reticle will appear and you have to constantly hit the correct button when it goes over your enemy. While this sounds straightforward, it can get tricky when you're aiming at an enemy close to an ally, because if you get the timing wrong, you could hit and damage one of your own players. At first glance, Grand Kingdom's combat may look simple, but in reality it can be more challenging than you expect. Now, let's talk about the 4 available classes: Fighter, Hunter, Witch and Medic. The 4 classes are the basic Tank, Ranged DPS, Magic DPS and Healer. Each class has their own set of abilities that make their class stand out. For example, fighters automatically guard when they finish attacking, and the witch has a charge-up attack that can devastate those who are on the same line as her, as well as crowd control fire spells. With only 4 classes available in the beta, it is difficult to see how these match up against the other classes in the game. Now, before I finish, I want to bring up the single player campaign. The 2 quests available are tutorial quests that teach you how to play the game. The quests are straightforward and as such aren't an issue, but when I started reading the single player dialogue, something stood out, and that was how little interaction I had with the NPCs talking. During an early conversation between Lilia, your assistant and the guild leader's daughter, and Flint, a fighter in your squad, Flint says that he and the boss, which means you, would prefer to go drinking rather than take a tour. While this conversation might not seem like much, Flint is bringing you into the conversation, but unfortunately you can't answer, and to me it feels immersion breaking. Personally, I would have liked a dialogue option where you could choose to agree with Flint about going drinking, or agree with Lilia about continuing the tour. From what I've seen of the Grand Kingdom beta, there's a lot of potential. The combat and online war is both fun and interesting, but I can't get a full opinion of the game until it is released in June. Now, Grand Kingdom is published by NIS America and developed by Monochrome Corp and Spike Chunsoft. Grand Kingdom will be released for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita on June 17th in Europe and on June 21st in North America. Now, if you're interested in signing up for the beta, visit www.grandkingdomgame.com/beta. And just to let you know, the beta is set to end on May 10th. Thank you for watching. Please like, favorite and subscribe. For more gaming information, please visit sggaminginfo.com. And don't forget to like our Facebook page at facebook.com/sggaminginfo. And follow us on Twitter at sggaminginfo.